Hi everyone, welcome to The Superficial Spirit, where we explore how pop culture affects our spiritual experiences. My name is Peter Breeze. Join me while we ask a very important question. What the hell did pop culture do to me? Superficial Spirit. Thanks so much for joining me again today. I have another duel on our show. Wow, actually, one of our guests is named Duel, and I didn't even realize that. I am going back to my time in Kelowna, back to the Okanagan, back to BC, where Evan and I lived for almost 2 years, and I am talking to Dustyn and Sparkle. Dustyn and I worked together on a couple amazing, exciting projects. One of them is a monthly queer event called FRUITCAKE. Now, it's hard to imagine a city without regular queer nightlife, but when I moved to Kelowna, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, there was queer programming through their Pride organization and other independent cultural producers, but there was no regular queer nightlife. And I was moving from Vancouver, where all I did was go to clubs, and everybody I knew was a drag queen performing in clubs. So when I got to team up with Dustyn and one of the clubs there to bring the first ever queer monthly nightlife in an actual club, it was so amazing. I mean, I had gone from being a club kid for like nearly a decade to suddenly feeling like I was 18 again and discovering nightlife for the first time, because the community there was so excited to have the party, and it was such a refreshing vibe, as opposed to a big city where you're kind of spoiled in terms of how much you can do every night. You know, there's multiple venues, multiple parties, different kinds of promoters, different kinds of drag queens, and then you go to a city like Kelowna and there's such a rich abundance of opportunity for people to come in and create experiences for people. We also created Peak Pride, which was the first ever LGBTQ festival up at Big White, which is a really famous and amazing ski hill. That was such an amazing event. We had Simone from Love Inc. come and sing. We had Alyssa Edwards from RuPaul's Drag Race. And again, it was such an exciting time in the Okanagan, because the programming that we were offering queer folks and their allies was just going up and up and up. And I'm so grateful that I was there and that I got to work with Dustyn and Sparkle and another amazing drag queen called Sasha. Yes, it's so nice to talk to them. It's another trip down memory lane, and we talk about the evolution of the queer community in Kelowna and sort of how it's changed so quickly over the past few years, and also what's on the horizon. We also talk about the infamous ANTI MASK, anti-vax rallies that happen on a weekly basis in Kelowna. Every single week, hundreds, maybe into the thousands, gather to protest the wearing of masks, COVID-19 restrictions in general. And every time I see it online, I'm just like, fuck, I know there's a lot of people who feel that way and are against these restrictions, but you know, Kelowna, it seems like such a larger part of their population because it is a smaller city. So we talk about that and, you know, life in lockdown, what it's been like and what they're hoping for in the future. So thanks so much for tuning in, for joining me again today. If you haven't already, please subscribe on Spotify and YouTube. And you can also leave me a review on Apple and follow me there. I'm on social media at Peter Breeze. Thanks so much for tuning in again. Okay, we just need to get on with the show. This is my conversation with Dustyn and Sparkle, aka my famous friends. Sparkle, I was thinking about how when I was living in Kelowna, I used to call you the Homer Simpson of drag. Did that stick? Does anybody else call you that?
Yes, people still call me that. Yeah, another one that stuck is people still call me a Craigslist icon.
Oh, that's a good one. I love that. I didn't come up with that.
You started that too. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my God. Wow. I was just full of them for you.
No, thing is, you said all of them for the first time all at once. You're like, the Homer Simpson of drag, a Craigslist icon. And like, you just like kept going up. And then I'm like sitting there and I'm like, bitch. Now it's previous Craigslist icon because I can't use that.
Why? Why can't you use it anymore?
Because Craigslist got rid of like the men seeking men section.
Oh, see, I didn't even know. I didn't even know. I didn't actually know that that's how people hooked up. Like, why would you go on Craigslist if you can go on Grindr?
When it was only for when I was cross dressing.
It's like a year into the pandemic. How are you both feeling? Like, we just hit the year mark like last week or something. So, how are you both coping?
Well, I personally have never stopped working. I've been working the whole time. I've been working more since it started.
Wow, that's lucky.
Yeah.
How did you manage that? Where are you working?
Well, I still work at Okanagan Spirits, the craft distillery. So, being an essential business, we never closed. Everything changed, and it was we weren't doing tastings or anything like that. But like, we could still do bottle sales, but we were also making sanitizer.
For some of the sanitizers were like hangovers. Like, I would put it on my hand and it smelled so much like booze. And somebody had told me that a lot of the booze makers were shifting to sanitizers because they couldn't serve liquor.
It's not because we couldn't serve liquor. Well, we couldn't serve it, but we could still make it and sell it. It was more so the need for sanitizer as well, because there was none. So like at first, Okanagan Spirits, we were making sanitizer for like medical facilities and like stuff like that. Like we were donating it to care homes, to doctors' offices, to the hospital. Like we were donating to like all like the medical first first responders and stuff, like ambulances, fire services, police. Like everybody was getting our sanitizer throughout the Okanagan.
And was Sparkle handing them out in full face?
Hells to the no.
That's too bad. You should do your own line of sanitizer.
Sparkle Sanny?
Sparkle Sandy. Dirty Sparkle.
Yeah.
Dustyn, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's been an interesting year, as it has for many. I mean, I probably haven't paid myself a wage in over a year now. So it's been, the government support has been huge and basically kept me from bankruptcy. But we were very fortunate with regards to Unicorns to receive some funding through Creative BC for CUSIC, our live music program, specifically focused around LGBT musicians. And with that, I literally got the check about a week or two before the massive shutdown. So it's like, great, I've got 40 grand sitting in the bank account that I really can't do anything with. So thankfully, they were very flexible and allowed us to adjust. And we went the live stream version with some in person when we could. And then through that whole process, we ended up creating Unicorns Live, which is kind of like, I look at it like it's like a Netflix style platform, except all of the content is all live and then recorded and available after the fact, but nothing is edited. So it's authentic. It's as close as you can get to an in-person performance right now. Even when we can have events and have live performances again, we're still going to live stream it because, not everyone can always attend in-person events, whether it be work or health or otherwise. So they can still enjoy it from the comfort of the living room.
When I was promoting parties and when event planning was the focal point of my life, the one thing that always made me calm was like, people will always need to party. There will always be that need for release. I couldn't imagine a day when you wouldn't be able to go to the bar or go to a pride festival or get married. And all of my people, like all my friends who work in events, have had the hardest time over the past year, and those were the most adaptable people, because as event planners you need to be really resourceful, you need to think on your feet. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to find new innovative ways to come to the event, and this is kind of like push that into overdrive. Like drag queens have to do digital drag, and event producers, Dustyn, the fact that you were able to come up with the live streaming platform is great, because I think a lot of people just froze, like they didn't know what to do.
I mean, and I did it first too. It was like a 1 month of just being drunk. I'm like, I don't know what to do with my life, right? Like, how long is this going to last? Is it going to be done by summer? Like, you really had no idea. And then, usually when I'm in that state of like, it's panic and chaos, then I really start thinking like, okay, well, how do we get through this, right? And yeah, it's creatively, this last year has been unlike anything else I've ever experienced. Like, I'm constantly coming up with new show ideas and how to do shows. Like even with Kelowna Pride this year, we ended up streaming. So we had two separate festival sites, one at Forbidden Spirits and one at Summerhill. Both had its own lineup of talent in terms of musicians. and we live streamed both, but it was one feed, so we'd actually go back and forth between the two festival sites.
Cool.
So we've been able to do some really cool stuff, and I mean now we're streaming the opera, the symphony, and in a couple weeks we're going to be streaming ballet, and then potentially the opera in April or May if they can perform. So it's there's been a lot of good that's come out of it too.
Yeah, I think if you're able to focus on how to reintroduce your brand in a new way, then there definitely was a lot of potential. Sparkle, how have you been adapting with being a drag queen in a digital landscape now?
I haven't done as much in drag, obviously. There was a point where I was actually quite busy. In BC, it's been a little bit better than other parts of Canada due to the fact that we've been able to do like small things kind of thing. So I have been able to like be out and kind of be doing drag in front of people in like live, but it's like small, like we can't perform right now, so we can't actually do a number, but it's like talking on a mic. It's basically stand-up comedy. There was park and barks, but like you can't even do that. Like you're not even allowed to stand up. Like you have to stay seated when you're on
What is
mic.
a park and bark?
It's when you just like park and bark.
What are you like? A car pulls up to your house and you pop out and drag and do a little twist?
No. So like you're on the stage. No, you're on the stage. You park your feet in one spot and you just lip sync.
Oh.
It's just a park and bark.
Okay, I
So
like
there's no
that
moving
term.
around. There's no moving around and like touching people. It's usually like a park and bark. I consider a park and bark is like when you do like it's usually a slower song, like a big belty like ballad or something.
I can't believe I've never heard that before. Okanagan, too, is an interesting place for the pandemic to happen because it's a smaller economy to begin with. So it already takes extra effort to drum up business, get people to the location. So do you feel like you guys had to work harder to create opportunities for yourself during the pandemic than, say, queers in Vancouver?
Maybe not because we have someone like Dustyn right there that was creating things that like digital shows that we just had to kind of like go to and we didn't have to actually organize them ourselves.
Well, I think in places like Vancouver, they've been a lot more locked down than we have. You talk to people in Vancouver, and even right now, it's still everyone's like avoiding restaurants. Where here, you go out like 2 weekends ago, and there was a lineup down the block for restaurants. Like
Wow.
people here are going out and doing stuff. Like we created the Sip with Sparkle, also known as the Shit Show with Sparkle, or the Sparkle Shit Show, whatever you want to call it. That came out of COVID too, which has been a lot of fun. And
it's Dustin's favorite show that he produces.
I mean, hello.
It's the most amount of work that I put into a show. It's just someone's high maintenance.
I have seen a lot of coverage of the anti mask rallies that happen in Kelowna. And I do remember, like, when I think back about my time in Kelowna, it is a conservative place. I mean, there's no way around that. Doesn't mean it's bad, but I'm kind of shocked to see how much momentum these rallies are getting. What do you guys think of the anti-maskers? Is that what they're called, anti-maskers, or they're
anti-maskers or anti-vaxxers? Like,
and this is like once a week, right, or once every 2 weeks?
It's every weekend. Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
every Sunday. Every Sunday they do a rally.
Saturday.
Is it Saturday?
What's the general consensus of like you and your friends? Like, are people do a lot of people that you know go to these rallies, or do you feel like it's a small part of the population? Like,
well, it's pretty small. I would say it's a pretty small percentage. We look at them like fools.
For the most part, it's true.
And like, do I know a lot of people that go? I have no idea. I'm not there. You know what I mean? Like, I can't see them. I don't have a lot of people on like my Facebook saying that they're there. I don't have like any friends that say that they're there. I see a lot of people complaining about them.
It's not like stop traffic. Like they've like walked across Highway 97 and blocked traffic at times, and that's why they've gotten fines. I think they've calmed down a bit, and now they've mostly just organized at Stewart Park. But I mean, I've driven by a couple times on a Saturday. I just drove by and roll my eyes. I'm like, whatever. Like, you guys aren't part of the solution.
Didn't they vandalize City Hall?
Well, I don't think it was necessarily them, but someone did.
There's a person that did that was like very anti-mask and stuff, and like they're like taking away our freedoms, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And they did it a couple times as well, because it was like the same handwriting, the same spelling errors.
What?
Oh
yeah.
God, there was like
Wait,
the first
maybe it's
one.
just branding. Maybe they're just trying to brand themselves. Maybe it's not actually, like, maybe it's on purpose.
It didn't look like it was on purpose. It looked like they just don't know how to spell the words.
Was it you, Sparkle?
Well, I mean, like I couldn't have spelled even more words. So I mean, like it couldn't have been. Also, it was way too high. I'm too short to reach that.
True, you're just a little hot dog. A hot dog weenie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer Vienna sausage. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good drag name. And also, since I left, you guys got a gay bar. What's that been like?
It's been good. It's been nice having a place to go to.
Yeah, it was funny. I mean, it was interesting how it came to be because when I reflect on it, so the very first time Rudy and I met was actually when it was Wine and Art, and we sat at that long table, and that was where we had a drink the very, very first time, and then it changed to Boubez, which was never open, and I knew Rudy was looking because I know Peter. Him, and I were looking at a space a couple of years ago, which didn't end up working out. And so I knew where he was looking. I said, well, what about that spot? And so I introduced him to the lady who used to own it. And then, I started chatting with her and ended up buying her out. And I mean, it was, about 4 or 5 months before he actually got to open. Like, it was a long, because there was delays that were outside of his control. But, it was wild and crazy for 2 months and then shut down because of COVID. And it's been adjusted ever since, but he's already got his, his second location now in Victoria.
I saw that. Yeah, that's great. That's exciting. And I love the name Friends of Dorothy. It seems like I loved Wine and Art. That was a cute little spot. I can't wait to go there at some point. I'm so happy you guys got it because I know, Dustyn, when you and I were working together, that you're right. That was on the table. And this is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about because I kind of came to Kelowna from Vancouver. I was really in the club scene in Vancouver and very quickly started doing parties, started like networking. Dustyn, you and I connected, put together Peak Pride, Fruitcake, all of that stuff. And I felt like you two were some of the people that I connected with and I worked with. But I also definitely felt like in that city, there was a sense of like, they didn't want an outsider coming in and doing anything that was good or successful. Like, without naming names or getting too juicy, there was definitely people who I felt were not happy about the Fruitcake, for example, or Peak Pride. Like, suddenly we were getting these big queer events and the general community I felt like was excited, but there was also some pushback of people who wanted to be involved and weren't, or maybe were upset that they didn't think of it. I don't know. But do you guys feel like because it's a smaller city that a more competitive environment because it's smaller?
Is there some people who were probably upset that they didn't think of it first? Absolutely. And who were annoyed that, when we started bringing in Drag Race Queens, and obviously there's been more shows outside of that, that are on a different scale, from Noir and Diva and all that. But yeah, I mean, there's always maybe some pushback, but I think for the most part, everyone's been extremely appreciative of what we've done. And also, I think, your point earlier about, being an outsider kind of coming in, I'd say that mentality has changed a lot because there's been a lot of people who have moved here in the last 2 years, both pre-pandemic, but also post-pandemic. Because
even right now, there's tons of people constantly moving.
I feel like the one thing I loved about living in Kelowna was if you had an idea, you could easily rally a group of people and build something really quickly and have a huge impact because there, like you said, Dustyn, it's not a big city where there's multiple gay bars, 100 drag queens, and a bunch of promoters you're competing with. So in that sense, I loved it. But I also felt like when you establish yourself as that cultural leader of doing the events, then you kind of absorb the responsibility of doing it, keeping it up, keeping everybody satisfied, but also taking all of the feedback and ultimately ending up being like a representative for the community. If you're the only one doing these crazy parties, then you have to make sure that they speak to all of those people. So do you feel that responsibility? Do you feel like that's a burden almost living in a smaller city that you can establish yourself, you can be like a big fish in a small pond, but what's the downside to that?
Kelowna's had LGBT stuff for years, but not anything consistent. I mean, Fruitcake was really the very first monthly LGBT thing that was going on. After the center closed, I should say, because there used to be more obviously with the center. But the only thing that had that kind of longevity, and I think that things like that have really helped create a more maybe a connected LGBT community in Kelowna, because at least there's somewhere to be and gather, and then with the mix and and the different things that we did. And I think that has helped because then more people have seen, oh, like Kelowna there is some stuff going on. It's not like Vancouver where you can go to a gay bar any night.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like Fruitcake added that consistency so easier for people to connect. And it was crazy that that was the first monthly. Like you had the center before that, but I remember just being blown away and also kind of feeling like I was 18 all over again, that I was with a community that was like, "Oh my God, we have a fucking huge club night. This is so exciting." There's a huge sound system and a stage at a real club. That was so fun. I loved being a part of that. Um, Sparkle, what is it like being a drag queen in a city that, for until recently didn't have a gay bar? Like, how did you, first of all, decide you wanted to be a queen when there wasn't clubs necessarily? And how did you keep that? How did you stay engaged with your community without a regular gay bar?
Like that was a lot of questions all at once.
One at a time.
Yeah, and I was just like,
do you want me to ask them again, honey?
I was like, I'm going to start with the one. I can answer one of them.
Okay.
So I started drag initially. I was at the competition. Like the drag competition started during Pride that Ella was organizing, kind of thing. And I competed as a joke against a friend. Made a bet against a friend because we were like, oh, we should enter. Well, it was my idea. I really wanted to do drag ever since I saw RuPaul's Drag Race. And I was just like, oh, if there's ever a drag competition I can enter, I'm going to enter and I'm going to win. So they came up and I challenged him. I was like, hey, I'm like, oh, we should sign up for this, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I don't know. And I was just like, you're right. You can never beat me. And he was like, bitch, you're on. And then so we did it and I did win. And then I just kind of like fell in love with it and kept doing it. That was also like, so after that, because there was like not monthly events at the time, but there were like gay events happening. And because that happened, it showed like the popularity of like people wanting to see drag. So like after that, there was like the New Year's Eve party that Pride did. And I went and did that. There was also Embodiment, which was like organized by Ella and Sasha. And they did that, like they do that every couple of years. Like it's not an often running thing, but they asked me to be a part of that because after I won, and then it was just kind of like slowly doing random gigs here and there. It wasn't lots. It was like I did drag like maybe once every few months, kind of thing. So it's like very slow build kind of thing, and not like now where like the new queens now starting, they can do drag weekly and have go to something with Dorothy's. I forget any other questions that you asked there.
Well, you answered most of them. I mean, and creating a reputation as a drag queen in a city that doesn't have the same opportunities as a larger city is harder. But I feel like you are natural. I loved watching you perform, and queens are resourceful. I mean, when they want to fucking be a star, they will find a stage. Like they will perform at the coffee shop, at the fucking bookstore, in their apartment. And that's also what I loved about Kelowna is like, if you want something, you have to make it happen. It's not just there waiting for you. But now that you do have a gay bar, do you find like there's so many more drag queens? Like, have you noticed?
Well, now there's like, even just like the last couple years, there's so many more drag performers. It's just insane. We have so many drag performers that have started in the last 2 years that are just like 2 years old. Like there's definitely ones that have like slowly building up. Like as the scene was building, they were slowly like another one, or someone would move here that did drag somewhere else and kind of came into the scene. But these last couple years has been like a huge I don't know the word, but
influx
or a plethora of it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so there's just like been this big wave of new queens coming in. Like some of them that always played with makeup but never did like drag. So like their makeup's really good, but then they suck as performers. Some of them that were just like really good performers, but their makeup sucks.
Oh, let's take it back a second. Who sucks as a performer, honey?
Oh, all of them compared to me.
Dustyn, who are some of your favorite new drag queens that are coming up in Kelowna?
New and favorite.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm trying to think.
Question. That was a great question.
I mean, there's obviously been our staples. I'm trying to think, like, kind of our newer ones. I guess Calora's newer. Kelownafornia.
Oh, that is a good name.
Karen A. Crystal.
Carrying a Crystal?
Oh, no, Karen. Like Karen, like, and then the letter A, and then Crystal.
Sparkle, who are the new girls that are impressing you?
No comment.
There's nobody that's impressing you in all of Kelowna? Oh my God, you shady bitch.
Such a bitch, yeah.
Who's impressing me? Yeah, there was
That's what I
Rosie
was
She
thinking of.
Chloroform. There's Karen A. Crystal. Like Alexa Nereza, but like she's
I know
not as
Alexa.
new as
Yeah,
the rest of
she's
them.
like
But like
she's
she's
the
not as new, but she's like the mid range. Like she's
yeah,
not like the
she's
OG
like
with
the
like me and
rock and roll queen, right?
yeah, yeah,
Rock and
metal
roll, and she's
queen, rock
straight,
and roll
isn't
queen.
she?
Yeah,
Straight identifying man.
she's hetero flexible.
Okay, flex that muscle, heenie.
Yeah.
I still think one of my all-time favorites is Safanda. She's the OG of
Oh
drag.
yes, she's the OG. She's been doing drag longer than most of us have been alive.
The only
Yeah.
people that I met in Kelowna were Sparkle and Sasha, who I love. Alexa, I remember as just starting out in drag. I remember Ginger,
Ginger Snap, yeah.
Ginger Snap, and
Ginger Snap is going to the gym now, and she wants to change her name to Ginger Beef.
oh my God, I love that. That's a good idea, Ginger Beef. That's
I gave
amazing.
her the idea of changing her name. She's like, I want to get like bulked up and like muscly, and I'm like, if you do, you have to change your name to Ginger Beef. And she was like, I like it.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, and also Nate. What was Nate's drag name?
Oh, Hannah
Hannah?
Day Job.
Yeah, I remember Hannah Day Job. She did the white party. She was never really at like Fruitcake, but
No.
there wasn't a lot of drag queens at the time. Oh, and
There was
Laura. What's his
Frida.
name?
Was the
I didn't meet Frida. Oh, what about the satanic one?
no? That's
Genitals.
Jenna. Jenna tells. Yeah.
I love her story. She was like a Christian girl who's now a Satanist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool story. I need to have her on the show. And also Laura, the drag king.
Yeah. Craven
Cool.
Moorhead.
Craven Moorhead. So is it super competitive for these girls to get gigs then because there's so many and not there's only so many gigs to go around? Does it create drama
Well,
behind the scenes?
because there's so many more gigs with Dorothy's because Dorothy's does drag there at least twice a week. So I mean, like, so there's a lot of gigs to go around, I guess, and then like when there's like the online show, like when Dustin does like a big online drag show, that everyone's in it. You know what I mean? It's not just one of us. It's not just two of us. It's like everyone's welcome to do a performance kind of thing. So those are like really good opportunities for everyone to get on stage. There's also the competition, which is a good way for like the new ones to kind of get out there. And I always told them, I was like, the best way to get your name out there is do the competition. Like, don't do it to win. Literally, just do it just to expose your name to the scene.
Yeah, totally.
And then like you get your name in their mouth, and then like then they'll want you at Dorothy's. They'll want you on Unicorns.live. Like they'll want you on a bunch of other things because your name is out there.
Dustin, do you feel a responsibility to like because you're the one organizing a lot of events, to make sure it's equal opportunity, or do you kind of wait for a girl to establish herself before you invite them to perform?
I think it depends what the situation is. For example, like in December when we did the We Care Christmas special, that was a fundraiser for Etc. Youth Group. It was anyone and everyone. But it really just depends on what the show is and what we're trying to focus on. Because even when we're creating shows for Unicorns Live, we kind of have like, so let's look at live music as a good example of this, where we had to have some more established musicians that we're doing. And right now we're also trying to create a more emerging series, which is for those musicians that probably only have one or two or maybe three original songs. So we're trying to have all different levels of and different calibers of talent. And I try to have a variety of that when we do drag stuff as well. Like we're trying to do a national show with a friend of mine out of London, Ontario. We're calling it Canada's Drag Cabaret, but the challenge we're having right now is the sound quality. Because often when you're on streams like this, you can't play music internally on your computer. So sure, I can play it from my end, but then there's a slight delay, so they're lip syncing. It looks like their lip sync is off.
Oh my gosh!
So, but what half the time people are doing is they're really just playing music on their phone, and their mic's picking up, which is like terrible quality. And I won't do stuff if the sound quality is the shits. So that's our challenge with that. But we want to drag performers from across the country as part of that, all doing it from their home living room. But it's just trying to manage the quality. So,
what's it like dating in such a small city?
Single.
Like, what's Grindr like? Yeah, single. Well, we know you were on Craigslist, so that speaks volumes. But when I was there, I was
so Grindr's a
Yeah.
lot more popular now that Craigslist is closed down. There's a lot more blank
But how many
profiles.
people were actually on Craigslist?
You'd be surprised. Like, they weren't making ads, but they were replying to them.
Dustyn, were you on Craigslist?
Never.
Yeah, whatever. He didn't reply to my
You
ads.
too,
That's all
Matt.
I know. The thing is like, no, like, if I went to go do that on Grindr, I'd like maybe one person would message me. Whereas in, like, I'd make that stupid Craigslist ad and I would get like 35 emails. It was insane.
Wow.
Pick of the litter. Like, that's where all these like straight want to, like, they want to fuck a dude, but they want it dressed like a woman.
Yeah.
They want a
yeah.
chick with a dick.
That's
Yeah.
a common. A lot of my drag friends have said that same thing. Like it becomes a part of your sexual, not your sexual identity, but a part of your sex life. If you do drag, it opens the door for other sexual encounters that you wouldn't have if you were just a plain old gay boy.
Yeah, very much so. Well, nobody's fucking me, so.
Well, and I do think COVID's definitely put a damper on all of that. Granted,
True.
before I've never liked dating on a good day. It's just always so much drama and bullshit. So whether it was here, Vancouver, or when I lived in Ontario, it was always the same. Like the same bullshit, no matter what city you go to. It's just there's more potential people to date or to fuck. So yeah.
What are some like things you would say that are better in Kelowna than a big city?
For like a queer person, well, I think there's actually like people think it's super conservative here, and it's not as conservative as it may seem politically. I guess like it's more welcoming than it seems. I guess on paper. I guess is what I'm saying. So like, because it's like my job probably seems like a place that they would be very quite conservative, and they welcomed me with open arms. They know that I'm a drag queen. They know, like, literally the first time I met the manager, I was in full drag at a Pride event, and they were like a booth, and then I went and applied, and I got the job. So I was a flaming homosexual that also dressed as a woman, and they had no problem. But I'm like, but there's a lot of businesses around that like are very supportive. Like there's a lot of out gay people that work at a lot of different places, and those businesses they don't care. Like it's like politically it's a little different because I don't think the gays and people are voting.
I think, and it's not just necessarily for being queer being here versus the big cities or anyone, but like your access to like nature, right? Like if you like to go hiking or swimming or kayaking or any of that kind of shit, it's super easy. Big White's 45 minutes away. Silver Star, depending on where you live, 45 to an hour away. You got two beautiful world-class ski hills for winter sports. Obviously, you got the lake in the summer. Like, it's fairly clean, and it's like you can go swim and hang out in it all day. There's tons of bike trails, there's hiking trails galore. Like, there's tons of stuff to do, especially if you like outdoors. And, the last few years, like, the restaurant scene has really substantially changed, I think, because there have been a lot more younger people moving to town, especially from places like Vancouver and Calgary, because it's obviously cheaper to live here than in some of those cities. And so, the mindset of people here has also shifted as well. And I think people, to Jewel's point, are a lot more open-minded.
I found that I didn't feel like it was conservative in the way that like, oh my God, there's a gay person. Like, that's not the way that I interpreted the conservative nature of the Okanagan.
Well, I mean, there still is that, but
I didn't see that. I know that it's there, but like for example, the gay people in the Okanagan are even more conservative. Like when I was going out in Vancouver, for example, my friends were wearing like leather harnesses and a thong, and that's it, and like 12-inch platform boots. And then when I would go to a party in Kelowna, everybody was wearing like, polos and nice clothes, and it was more picturesque. And Dustyn, you're right. Being close to nature, 100%. That was what Evan and I loved so much about it. I found that even the queer community is more conservative, though, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. There's a lot of conservative queers, but that's the way I interpret it. It wasn't like homophobic. It wasn't like people are anti-queer. It was just like everything's a little bit toned down, whereas in the cities, it's like there's so many of us that if you want to stand out, you go to more extremes. And I think just being around more people like you get more and more comfortable being, I guess, a louder version of who you are. Whereas in Kelowna, everybody felt really welcoming, but there wasn't a lot of extreme personalities.
I
That's
agree.
what I would say.
Yeah, and I think some of that to play is probably on our even on our arts and cultural scene in general. Like it's fairly conservative. Like there's a lot of strong supporters of things like the symphony and the opera and the ballet, and those are very kind of like set in their ways. I guess the more alternative arts forms maybe is something that's definitely lacking here. And I think if there was a more alternative art scene that wasn't kind of the mainstream or whatever you want to call it, I think we would see more queers that also align with that, and you might see them that are a little more on the edge, if you want to
Yeah.
call it that.
Well, and I think that sort of goes into what I said before is if you come in and you want to make that edgy movement, there's probably a community for it, but then you also have to be ready to keep the momentum going. Like, can you imagine, Dustin, if
Mm-hmm.
we did fruitcake and then we were like, oh, that was fun, and then we just stopped and then you stopped? Like, you have to be willing to keep the momentum. Or Sparkle, if you
Yeah,
put together a drag show and everybody was like, that was amazing, and then you're like, yeah, it was fun, and then you stop. Like, being in a smaller community, you have to be really, really focused on what's the next good thing? How do we keep the community
yeah,
engaged?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when you know that you actually have a community
Yep.
versus a one-off like siloed kind of show, right? Because if it relied on one person to keep everything alive, you don't really have a true community. So now that there's things regularly ongoing, both whether it's at Dorothy's or with us or elsewhere, like even the university has stuff going on somewhat, not right now regular, but normally they have stuff going on. And there's other pockets with Etc. Youth Group, GSA. So there are lots of different things happening now. And I think that's when you really start seeing that community approach to stuff.
What would you guys say is the biggest change that you've seen in the queer community in the Okanagan in the past 5 years?
The amount of people, because
Yeah.
it was like a while back. Like it's just like you'd go to a gay event and I knew 99% of the people there. The only people I didn't know was like a couple of the gay's fag hags. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
was like, I just haven't met her before. Like she's new to me.
But then you'd meet her at the after party later that night.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, okay, well now I know her. So it's like everyone used to know each other, and that's kind of how like the gay events always were here.
Yeah.
Compared to like now, it's like I see a lot of people. Um, I see a lot of people that I'm like, I have no idea who that is. Like, who's that? Who's that? I don't know if it's just because I'm old gay now and I'm not a young gay anymore.
How old are you?
I'm 23.
10 years ago. So Sparkle, you think the biggest difference is that there's more people, just the size?
Well, I mean, like it's yeah. Well, I mean, like that's it's the way Kelowna's growing right now. Its growth is in like a certain age bracket. It's not like there's of course obviously people moving here to retire, but I just don't see as much of that compared to like like the younger like young families or like younger professionals moving here because places like Vancouver and Calgary are too expensive, and they're like, I got a job offer in Kelowna and I'm taking it because it's like it's beautiful and like I can live more comfortably in a place like Kelowna compared to these big cities where I can't afford it, kind of thing. Like I think that's been a huge thing is we're having a lot of movement from Vancouver. Like people are just like I just can't afford to live here anymore because I'm house poor, and they're like I'm like all my
Totally.
money goes to rent. So they're
Yep.
like, it's just not worth it unless I live way out in the boonies,
But then there's
and then
a
it takes
point.
and then they're like, I spend all my time
Yeah.
traveling between work and home. And they're
That's
like, it's
why
again, now it's just no point.
Evan and I, when we were considering moving to the Okanagan, we were like, "Oh, we'll just move to Abbotsford, or we'll just move to New West." But it's like, if you're gonna leave, if you are just outside Vancouver, you're still tied to Vancouver. But if you go farther enough to the Okanagan, you can actually be independent from the city and build a life there. And I think that you're right. If you can go to the Okanagan with a job and you can have that stability, then it's a beautiful place to be. I found it hard to like make money was hard, but I was also just at a different place in my life. So I think that speaks to it. Dustin, what do you think is the biggest change in the last 5 years?
I think people have like the amount of people moving here has made a multitude of changes. So I think the people coming in definitely have been the biggest change. But and it's been interesting too because it's been a variety of different socioeconomic classes of people moving. Like I know some, like Bill mentioned about retiring here, and you are starting to see more mature queers that are moving here with their partner. Some are moving, especially if you work in banking, you get moved here for your last 2 or 3 years because you work out the pension things and get a free move to the Okanagan, or you can work from home. And so, you're starting to see that more, even like Peachland. Like, I know a number of LGBT people, more on the mature side and that live there, but and then you're getting lots of students because of UBC and the college. And because those people are coming, they're often people that like to go out and socialize. And so, that supports the restaurants, the wineries, everything. And so I think, with the pandemic too, we're still seeing plenty of people moving here. Sure, lots from Vancouver, but they're also coming from Calgary and Toronto and other areas of Ontario. I mean, starting in June, we're actually getting direct flights to Montreal, which is kind of,
Oh my
I
God,
think,
that's
crazy.
great. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Oh God,
So I
that's
think that'll
great.
bring a whole other element of changes both ways. It's great. I mean, I could hop on a flight and be in Montreal in 4 hours, but same people can come here as well, direct from Montreal, right? So, I think, there's a lot of really cool stuff that's happened in Okanagan. And
So we talked like a little bit about how like momentum is important in any community, so that you make sure it's always evolving and going to a better and better and better place. What do you think is like, what do you see that's on the horizon in the Okanagan queer community that's really exciting you guys, or what do you hope will happen? And also keep in mind, I'm sort of talking outside of COVID, because I'm hoping that eventually this goes away and you can just go back to normal. But what's on the horizon that you guys think is really exciting?
For the queer community, I know there's a group out of Vancouver that's been trying to bring a queer music festival here. So I know that has been in the works. Our longer term plan with Cusick has always been to create like even a mini music festival, even if it's only 1 day or maybe 2 days. There's things like that I think that are out there, and I think there's going to be more cool events and experiences that are going to be targeted towards LGBT. Like, I mean, I would love to get to the point where I'm also doing like volleyball tournaments that are LGBT focused, different sporting things. Like, there's lots of potential stuff that we can do. So it's the pandemic's obviously got to fuck off, but it's also not going to be the last pandemic in any of our lifetimes. Like,
oh God, I know. I'm thinking about that too. Like, what if this is just like Evan at night, like when we're going to bed, we'll watch these YouTube videos about how this is just the start of the like fall of civilization, and Rome started falling because of a pandemic. And was it a pandemic? What was it? Refugees. Just anyway, how we're so focused on getting vaccinated.
Pandemic, refugees.
Refugees, same thing. How we're so focused on getting vaccinated and moving on with our lives, but we're also facing so many other huge, like climate crisis. That's a huge one. Just social unrest, and maybe that even once COVID is under control and we can go back to having parties, there's just another pandemic around the corner, and then we're all just going to be partying at fucking Zoom raves for the rest of our lives. Good God, I hope that doesn't happen.
I think what we do will be very different after if we ever go to this pandemic. Like, it's going to look a lot different, I think, in just a lot of things. Like, I had someone the other day said to me, like, it's actually the good thing of wearing masks right now is that I haven't been sick, right? Because I mean, it's mostly affect other people, but with people wearing masks, I think that's actually been a good thing. So I think there's some things, airplanes have probably never been cleaner, bathrooms, restaurants, any of that, right? Things haven't been cleaner, which is good and bad, because bad in the sense that you don't get to take in the bacteria and stuff for your body to build natural immunity. So all of a sudden we're becoming very sanitized.
Yep. And hopefully Peak Pride can come back soon, because that was also building momentum, and then that had to stop. So do you have any plans for that right now, or are you just waiting to see what happens with COVID?
So, the hope is obviously to have at least 4 mountains this next winter, but I don't know if I'll focus on 5 days or if I'll just keep it to the weekend.
Yeah.
And because I want to incorporate more streaming into it and kind of the experiential side of things. So I don't know. We'll kind of wait and see. I've said I had one partner at one of the mountains reach out this week about a great idea, and I'm like, I love it. It sounds great. I'm totally cool, and I'd love to do it. However, I'm like, we're really not doing anything until at least May or June.
Yeah.
Like, we kind of want to see what happens. We've had 2 now false starts. Twice we've tried to do stuff at Big White. Both last summer we tried to do a summer version, as well as this past winter. And so I just keep wasting money.
Yeah, just
So
wait. It's just like these people who keep
yeah,
trying to get married, and like they're losing like tens of thousands of dollars every time they commit to a venue and then it falls through. So I think it's smart to just have ideas, but then wait
yeah.
and till it's safe. Sparkle, what do you want to do in the future, honey? Besides win Canada's Drag Race? Well, like in the next wait. First of all, did you audition for Drag Race?
No,
What?
Oh, you did end up submitting?
I never submitted.
Ooh,
Why,
bitch.
Homer, homie?
So I guess it's because I know I'm not prepared for it, and I don't want to get on the show just to be on it. I want to be on the show to win, right? So I'm not one of those ones that are like, I'm just happy to be here. No. Like, I'm not just happy to be here. I'll be happy when I send all you bitches home.
Right, right. That's smart. Good for you.
So I mean, like, so it's like I also like just like knowing other drag queens, even like from different parts of Canada. I was like, they're so much more well prepared than I am. Like looking at certain details, like they're smart enough to like know like what their Snatch Game character is going to be, and
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
you
I
have to
have
know all
fucking no
that.
idea.
Yeah.
Like you need to like you really need to plan for Drag Race like years in advance and like build up your Drag Race repertoire. Like be like, oh, I need to make sure I have a hometown look and I have a this look and I need this look because
Yeah.
they're going to ask for it. You know what
I
I
think
mean?
what
Like,
happens is when you get on, they send you a list of all the outfits you need, and then you have like 2 weeks to
yes,
get them all.
exactly. So you have to build up some that you're like, hey, I already have
I
something
already
that'll
have
work
it,
for
yeah.
this. I already have something that'll work for this because it's like things that they constantly do. Like extravaganza,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
glam extravaganza. You just need something that's glam extravaganza. Like you already have that in your closet, you're good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you want something that's super sparkly because there's going to be something about diamonds on the runway. Like there's always going to be like those typical things. Like Snatch Game character, you need a Snatch Game character and you need to be able to play. Like I might have an idea for Snatch Game, but it's like I don't have the costume. I've never practiced it.
Who?
Like so, it's
Who?
like
Who would it be?
I've thought about a few, like a lot of them. Like there was like Rosie O'Donnell. I thought about.
Oh my god, that would be so funny.
I
Yeah.
thought about like I can't remember her name. The maid lady from Two and a Half Men.
I don't know that show.
She's done a lot of like comedy characters. She's very bitchy, so
Yeah.
I thought it was great. There was why I'm so bad at celebrity names. If I actually was looking at a list, I'd be so much better at this. But like Stifler's mom from like American Pie.
Oh, I like
Miss
I
that.
can't believe
Coolidge.
no one's done that yet.
I'm surprised no one's done it either because they're like, ooh, I really want a hot dog.
I'm all for. I think Rosie O'Donnell though is a pretty good one for you.
Right? Like I just thought that was that, and I was just like, ooh, I'd have to be brunette and everything.
Yeah, or Homer. You know.
Look, just straight up do the Homer Simpson. I could do that. Oh no! Paint myself yellow with a bald cap and just two hairs.
That would
on
be
my head.
iconic. That would be iconic. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. For anybody who's listening that's in the Okanagan or Kelowna, do you guys have any words of advice or any parting words you want to share?
People often say that Kelowna is cliquey, but I think it's the opposite. I find Kelowna, if you put yourself out there, that people will generally welcome you with open arms. It's not very often. Like, yeah, sure, there's some bitchy people out there that are, but they'll be like that to anyone. So I think, if you're looking to move here or you're trying to expand your social circle, you have to be the person to put yourself out. You can't expect everyone to come to you to bring you into their circles. You have to be vulnerable and try something you're probably uncomfortable with to get out there.
That's so true. And that's true for everything. You have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
The world isn't set up just to lift you up for no reason at all.
Words of advice? I mean, like, I'm still single, so
He likes getting shot with a Nerf
call
gun.
me, find me on Grindr. Like, just look me up. Right?
I'll put a link to your Grindr profile.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Perfect. Just be like, find her on Grindr. She's still single.
Find her on
I'm
Grindr.
right? I'm right downtown, so I'm like.
As part of her description, make sure to say that she loves getting shot by a Nerf gun.
Oh,
no.
In the butt?
Stop it.
No, in the face. She loves it right in her lips.
What?
In the
What?
tooth?
Okay, what's this story? I haven't heard this.
So
it started with.
Oh my
Sip
gosh.
It started at Pride, actually, is where it started. Nathan, my videographer, he used to be a roommate of mine, but he's our main video guy with Unicorns Live. And so at Pride, we had, during the drag competition, he the one night brought his Nerf gun. He said, you have to shoot Sparkle. So I did, and he had the little like round balls. And so ever since, I went and bought a Nerf gun now that actually you have to like charge it because it's battery operated. And then so you hear the fan going, and then it's like, choo, and then it shoots the bullet. So we try to remember to bring it to Sip with Sparkle. And now I have it hanging in my office.
There you go. If you are a drag queen, you can move to the Okanagan and get shot by Nerf guns live on camera. And make money while you're doing it.
I mean, like, I'm the only one that gets shot with a Nerf gun, and I don't make any money. So I was just like, everyone else is like, I didn't sign up for this. Now that I'm getting new guests for my show every month, oh my god, they're like, what the fuck is this bullshit? Because they're getting shot at too. They're aiming for me, but it ricochets, you know what I mean? And they're like, what is this?
That is so funny.
And I'm like, welcome to a sip of Sparkle.
Oh my god.